Today, we're gonna give my STI, better known as El Professor, a front-end makeover. Previously, I installed a low glow and underbody glow kit to give the car a nice ground effects look. So I decided to continue the look by adding an LED lit STI badge. I'll also be showing you the options that you can use to wire it up and the option that I went with and why I went with it. Since we have to remove the front bumper to install the LED badge, why not add a couple extra parts? So we're also gonna be installing a few other items on the front bumper to give it a more aggressive look. First, we'll need to remove the 6 bolt and 6 pop clips holding the top trim piece on top of the bumper with a 10mm socket and a pop clip tool if you have it. If not, I use a flathead screwdriver and it works just fine. Next, there's a little clip on each side of the wheel well. You're gonna push this in with a screwdriver and it's gonna make a popping sound, and once it's popped, you know it's unclipped. The final step of getting this front bumper off is going to be removing the 9 pop clips underneath the bumper that wrap all the way around the front. I don't have a lift, so I'm just gonna lay down and get up underneath it, but having a lift will make it much easier. Now that the bumper is fully unclipped, you're gonna pull out the sides near the wheel wells and the bumper will slide right out. And time to get into the first mod in the front end makeover, and that is the Noble Fluorescent Neon Radiator Brace. Since the engine bay is the neon yellow, I wanted to carry that to the front bumper. I almost went with the white for this piece, so it was white on white for the exterior, but because you won't see it and it'll only be one of those things you see when like the hood's open, I decided just to keep the theme going and it'll be nice on the outside, it'll pop against the white. Before we can actually install the radiator brace, there is 2 OEM bolts that we first have to unscrew from the front. Using the supplied hardware, you'll screw the 2 top bolts to the ones that you removed previously, and since they're already threaded, they'll screw right in. The bottom screws are not pre-threaded, so you'll use a nut with a 10mm wrench to attach the bottom part of the brace. Because the brace doesn't fit perfectly flush, make sure all 4 of the bolts are aligned before tightening it down. Going into mod number 2 for the front end is going to be the grill. So I decided to go with the Noble JDM Style Grill, and I almost went with the mesh style. I really like the mesh look. I've seen it at a couple meets, but I also really like the honeycomb. But the one thing I didn't like about the honeycomb, especially on the OEM version, is the bar that goes across the front end. It just doesn't look good. To make the LED badge pop, which we're gonna get to installing next, I'm going with the emblem delete, which is an option with this Noble style grill. Hopefully it looks good. To detach the OEM grill from the front bumper, there is 8 Phillip head screws that you have to remove first. Then there's several little clips on the bottom of the bumper that you'll unclip and it'll pop right out. And for the Noble grill, it is as simple as pushing it in and using the brand new hardware and screwing in the previously unscrewed locations. Then it's time to add the badge. Because the honeycomb style has a wide opening, the wires fit perfectly through. There's 2 slots on both sides of the badge to slide zip ties through. To get the initial placement down, there is some double-sided tape that you will use to attach to the grill. Make sure it's firmly pressed against it. Then you will tighten down those zip ties to make sure it's firmly secured to the bumper. Now it's time to answer the question I'm sure you're all asking, which is, how did I wire it up to the car? One way to do this would be to use a tap-a-fuse, and a tap-a-fuse allows you to wire it directly into a current fuse that's on when the car is on. So you would run it through the fender liner up into underneath the dash, and that's where you would actually plug it in. You'd still have to do some electrical wiring. You'd have to use some butt connectors to tie that wire together, but that is one way to do it. The second way that you could do this, which is what I did, is to wire it up directly to the battery. The reason I went this route is because I wanted to be able to control the badge whether the car was on or off, so I had full control. It didn't matter at all whether it was running or not. You use what's called an inline fuse, so you basically wire a fuse directly to the line and then you run it directly to the positive terminal. If the fuse blows, you save the LED badge from any damage that could have been done. To get started wiring everything up, you're going to need a couple butt connectors and some ring connectors. I'm using 16 to 22 gauge. On the inline fuse, you'll cut the wire and you also strip out the ends about 1/4 inch. On one side of the inline fuse, you will connect a butt connector and crimp it down. Then take the positive wire from the LitLogos wiring kit and attach that to the other side of the butt connector, crimp it down and heat shrink it. Then on the other side of the inline fuse, use a ring connector, do the same process by crimping it down and then heat shrinking. On the negative wire of the LED kit, repeat this process and attach a ring connector. Moving into the final steps of getting this all wired up, you're going to remove the negative terminal and then the positive terminal. The manufacturer specs a 5 amp fuse, so I'm putting that inside the inline fuse. Then you'll attach the positive wire to the positive terminal and the negative to the negative terminal. And to wrap up with the wiring, you're just going to tighten those terminal connections back down. To make sure everything's working properly, plug it in, download the app, and turn it on. Let's get these wires routed through the engine bay, and then I'll show you the second option you could do to wire this up. To get the wires hidden, I ended up tucking them under the front fender. To make sure the wires stay tucked, I used this plastic piece with 3M double-sided tape and stuck it underneath out of sight. Then I routed it down behind this plastic piece next to the light, which I did have to unbolt from the frame to get it through, and use a large industrial-sized zip tie to tie it down to the frame. We've got everything installed, the bumper is back on the car, and the LED badge is all wired up. So now I'm going to tell you about the other option you can use to wire up this badge. And that's using a tap-a-fuse. A tap-a-fuse allows you to tap into an existing fuse fuse in your car. So on my STI fuse diagram, I can use a 7.5 ACC fuse. The original fuse goes into the bottom slot that's closest to the prongs. The new added fuse goes on the top slot. When selecting a tapped fuse, make sure you get the right fuse type and also make sure you get the right amperage rating. This one's rated for 2 to 10 amps. The tapped fuse comes pre-attached with a butt connector. You're going to use the previous method of crimping down the positive wire from the LED kit into that butt connector and then heat shrinking it down. Then simply plug that back into the original fuse slot that you pulled out from, and now when your car is turned on, your badge has power. Let's dive into some of the features of this LED badge on the Bluetooth app, but first, if you like this video, you know what to do. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next video. The app is well designed and super easy to use, and you have the option to do solid colors or an RGB effect, and you can also control the speed of that effect. The app also has a dial that comes preloaded with 120 different types of sequences. You can also favorite the effects and control the brightness, but be sure to check your local laws when driving on the street with it on. The LED badge is extremely bright, has a really great build quality, and stands out on the grill. I definitely feel that the honeycomb style grill was the right choice versus the mesh grill, and I also love the emblem delete. The fluorescent yellow brace really pops through the grill and you can see it from any angle. And the border match grill matches really well to the original OEM paint color. Be sure to check out this video right here to see how I installed LitLogo that gave the car an awesome ground effects look at night.